If you need corrective eyewear, and 3 out of 4 adults in this country do, the choices seem endless, from comfortable contacts to thousands of fashionable frames. Even so, shopping for new specs or contacts can be a major hassle and an expensive purchase. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, a contributing editor at checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the Consumer Man, Herb Weisbaum.
In this episode, which eyewear stores offer the best advice and service, where to go to find the best prices on glasses and contact lenses, and who should you see to get your eye exam. Here to help bring all of that into focus, Checkbook's executive editor, Kevin Brassler.
Hello again, Herb.
You know, buying glasses or contacts seems like a fairly straightforward process, but it's really very complicated just because of the way the industry is structured and all the things you got to do.
Yeah, there are just so many conflicts of interest in the world of vision care, and I think most patients are unaware of them. You know, most consumers don't know this, but there's one huge mega corporation out there that controls most of the eyeglasses frames industry. Plus, with contact lenses, I mean, there are huge price differences for the exact same products. And we found that most vision insurance plans, strangely, don't necessarily align with the least expensive options. So there's just a lot of sketchy stuff going on in this industry, and it's a business that serves an important healthcare need for most of us. Most of us need glasses or contacts.
So let's start with the biggest problem you mentioned, the lack of competition. There's a massive Italian company, Eyewear, that now controls most of the vision industry here in the U.S.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like there's healthy competition out there for eyewear, right? I mean, there are dozens of different major chains, big box retailers like Target and Costco and Walmart. They sell a lot of eyeglass frames. Each of these different chains and stores sell different brands of glasses and hundreds of different models of frames at some of these stores. But really, all that variety is mostly an illusion. As you mentioned, EssilorLuxottica controls most of the trade. It has bought up many eyewear brands outright. For example, it owns Ray-Ban and Persol, two major manufacturers of eyeglasses frames. It also acquired the licensing rights to make most of the frames for major designers. So that includes Armani and Brooks Brothers, Burberry, Bulgari, Chanel, Coach, Dolce & Gabbana, Oakley, Ralph Lauren, Prada, Tiffany, and on and on.
Oh, that's a lot of big names. But that's not all. They also own a huge chunk of the eyewear stores that we go to.
Yeah, they're manufacturing most of the frames that are available to us, but they also own a lot of the stores that are selling them to us. So even though the name EssilorLuxottica doesn't show up on their signs, when you go into a Four Eyes chain store or Lens Crafters or Pearl Vision or even Sunglass Hut, even the optical departments at Target and several other big chains, you're actually shopping at a space or a store that this big manufacturer, right, owns or controls. And, you know, it's like that wasn't enough for them. Luxottica also has bought up the world's largest maker of prescription eyeglasses lenses. It also makes many of the contact lenses that are out there. And in recent years, it even bought up several vision insurance companies. So it's making most of the frames. It owns the stores that sells a lot of the frames out there. And now it owns companies that make the lenses for them and even the insurance companies.
So in reality, there's an illusion of competition in the marketplace that really doesn't exist.
Right. So when you're in a store and trying to decide what to buy, in many cases, at many stores, all of the options are available were made by Luxottica. But you just don't know that because there's all these different brands and many of them are designer brands. So if you're looking at, a nice looking pair of Marc Jacobs frames, they were made by Luxottica. And the weird thing is they were likely made in the same factory or maybe even on the same day as a nearly identical pair of frames that might cost only $60. The problem is it's not as if the sales staff at that store are necessarily going to point that out to you. They're not going to say, well, actually, no, these frames were made in the same factory by the same company. They just put a different label on the designer ones. And they're also not going to tell you probably, hey, you can go to Target and buy the same frames from the same company that made them and essentially get the same thing for a lot less money, again, at a store that's owned by the same company because Luxottica owns the Target optical outlets.
And as usual, when competition disappears, the consumer pays more.
Bingo, right? I mean, consumers don't know that instead of paying hundreds of dollars for a pair of designer frames, that they can pay a heck of a lot less just by simply moving to a different section of that store, right? Just going to the other side and looking at the generic frames, that they're essentially going to get what came out of the same factory. And it's really a big problem that Luxottica is allowed to continue to buy up all its competitors. I mean, that's really alarming. It already owned pretty much all the factories that are making frames and most of the retailers. And now they're buying up the places that make the lenses to go with those frames, and even our vision insurance companies.
So what does Luxottica have to say about all this?
So Luxottica says, well, there's still healthy competition out there because, its main rivals, at least in the U.S., are Walmart and Costco. And that's true. I mean, those two companies sell a lot of eyeglasses. So I really urge consumers, though, to use non-Luxottica-owned stores instead of the big chains that are owned by Luxottica. And one reason is that when we shopped prices at hundreds of different eyewear stores in each of our 7 metro areas where we publish Checkbook, we found that Costco was really the big winner for price. And it also gets pretty good ratings from its customers for things like quality of advice and other customer service categories. We found that many of the big chains owned by Luxottica get really poor ratings. And so overall, I think you do better shopping at a non-Luxottica outlet, either at a discount place like Costco or by going to an independent store that, most of the stuff they're selling might be made by Luxottica, but they might, provide better advice on what to buy.
So are there any other companies trying to cut into Luxottica's market dominance? Warby Parker is a name that'll be familiar to many of our listeners. That comes to mind. How about them?
So it and a few others started out as online-only eyewear stores, and they still offer stuff online. Warby Parker and a few similar companies, they now operate brick-and-mortar spots also. We found that Warby Parker's prices are quite low. I mean, most of its frames and lenses cost only $95, and it sells stylish frames. And like Costco, it got pretty good ratings from its customers that we surveyed for things like advice and customer service. But these companies really aren't yet making, a big dent in Luxottica's dominance, and I doubt they ever will. I mean, the only way to describe Luxottica right now is as a monopoly. I mean, it really does control the industry, and it often misleads customers into spending more than they need to.
So before you go shopping, you may need to get an eye exam. And up next, we're going to talk to Kevin about where to go to get that exam. I'm Herb Weisbaum, and this is Consumerpedia, powered by Checkbook.org.
Looking to get glasses or contacts? Checkbook has ratings for hundreds of opticians and optometrists in and around these 7 cities: Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis-St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. If you live in or around one of these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, get a free 30-day subscription to all of our ratings by going to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia.
You can't buy prescription lenses without a prescription, so you may need to see an eye doctor for that, right, Kevin?
Right. So you likely won't be able to buy new eyeglasses unless you've had a vision exam done within the last year. The same is true for buying contacts, but for them, your prescription will also need to include the measurements from a fitting test to determine the right size of lenses that you need to buy, and that fitting test usually costs extra. 2 types of providers do eye exams. The first type is an ophthalmologist. So these are physicians. They went to medical school and then they received additional training to become eye specialists. The other type that can do vision tests, optometrists. To become a licensed optometrist, you got to go to college and then do a graduate program. Both these types are properly referred to as doctors, but just keep in mind that ophthalmologists are MDs. There's also a profession called opticians. These are the folks that help patients pick out the right frames for them. They do measurements to make sure that, our optical focus points get lined up and things like that. They do, post-purchase adjustments to make sure the fit is good on your glasses. But opticians aren't doctors. And in many states, there aren't really even any requirements for them to have specific training.
So is there any reason to choose one type of eye doctor over the other?
I think as with any consumer service, no matter what training and credentials the service provider has, some are great at what they do and some suck. Good ophthalmologists and optometrists, they'll conduct accurate vision tests and provide solid advice on what to do next if you need glasses or contacts. If you need a new eye doctor and you've had some eye-related medical issues, I think it's probably better to see an ophthalmologist. Although, again, optometrists, they can treat simple eye problems too. And, I've been using the same optometrist for more than 25 years now, and she's great. And I haven't just used her to get eye exams done. I've seen her for other eye-related problems. I think if you already wear glasses or contacts and you just need a new prescription so that you can go and buy more stuff, then it probably doesn't matter really, where you go. But if your vision has changed, as you want to get an accurate prescription, but you don't want to get over-treated. I've been told by several eye doctors that a lot of their patients, they kind of get stuck in between prescription levels. That's happened to me. And it's better to undercorrect their eyesight a bit rather than overcorrect it. Because if you get overcorrected, your eyes can get used to that new prescription, and it kind of creates this domino effect where you just need a stronger and stronger prescription over several years.
One-stop shopping is convenient, so should you buy your glasses or contacts from your eye doctor? Kevin tackles that one next. I'm Herb Weisbaum, the Consumer Man, and you're listening to Consumerpedia, powered by checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. Eyeglasses have existed in one form or another for centuries. Ancient Roman scholars and medieval monks used to blow glass to magnify manuscripts. Ben Franklin is credited with inventing bifocals in 1784. He got tired of switching eyeglasses to help his near or far vision. Would you spend $55,000 on a pair of glasses? That's how much the Golden Wood Prestige glasses, handcrafted in Luxembourg, will set you back. The frames feature a combination of 18-karat gold, precious wood, and buffalo horn, with diamond-studded accents.
Many eye doctors sell contacts and glasses or have financial interest in an optical shop next door or are employed by that business next door. It's convenient, but Kevin, is it a smart move?
Yeah, so many states have laws that basically prevent eye doctors from selling glasses or contacts, or they prevent an optical store, a place that's selling glasses and contacts, from employing an optometrist or an ophthalmologist. There's usually kind of loopholes here, right? They can't employ one, but there can be an outfit next door and there still might be a financial relationship between those two places. I've seen a lot of, optical shops in states that don't allow these relationships where you can get your vision tested next door. You just have to kind of go out in the mall and come in a different door first. This raises some big questions. One of the reasons these states have these laws is because of conflicts of interest, right? Do some eye doctors prescribe eyewear that's not needed, or do they suggest patients need new glasses with a different prescription than what they have now and they really don't need the stronger prescription? Do some of these places, do they push more expensive contacts when cheaper ones will do because they want to increase their sales and their profits? Another big problem is it's not really well documented is that many eye doctors don't provide their patients with their vision prescriptions. Instead, they simply refer their patients to the sales staff in their eyewear departments or the place next door. And that's a problem because it makes the patient think that they can't shop around for better prices.
And that's really important. There is a federal regulation that requires all eye doctors provide their patients with their vision prescriptions and specs for contact lenses without even having to be asked. But many doctors, as we know, still don't do that. That's a problem.
Yeah, and the key words there are is they have to do it by law. They have to give you your prescription without you asking for it. They're supposed to automatically do it. And a lot of them still don't. It's very frustrating. I wear contacts and I have to go in for a vision test once a year. And again, I love my eye doctor. She's great, but I never buy my contacts from them. They just charge prices that are double what I can pay online. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I've often had to ask her staff to print out and give me my prescription when I check out. They're not just handing it to me automatically as they're supposed to do. And we know this happens way too often. It's not just my eye doctor. It happens so often that it's clearly a strategy by some of these stores, and some of these doctors to keep the sale. It used to be that, especially for contact lenses, that eye doctors, they argue that dispensing the contacts, selling their patients the contacts was part of their service because they weren't just giving their patients a prescription and a set of contacts. There were a lot of services involved, especially for patients who were new to contacts. They may have, a lot of times, for example, maybe not been happy with the brand they got. And so it was easier to return them and they could get a different brand if you're doing that transaction all in the same place. And a lot of patients who are new to contacts need help with instructions on putting them in. But still, the federal law now is very clear. They have to give us our prescriptions without us asking for them. And the reason we should get them that way is because we should do some shopping around.
So if you're new to wearing contacts, it probably makes sense to buy from your eye doctor or their affiliated office so you can get the best advice and care and follow up.
Yeah, I think it makes sense at least to buy, the first few months' supply from your eye doctor because, again, they are offering this service that you're not going to get if somebody just ships you contacts and you don't have any experience putting them in your eyes. So I think that makes sense. But if you've, as I have, been using the same brand and have had the same prescription for many, many years and have decades of experience putting in contacts and taking them out, you don't really need that service from your eye doctor. And you for sure don't need to pay 2 to 3 times as much as what you can pay by buying them online.
So how much can we save by buying at Costco or online?
Our undercover shoppers collected prices for more than a dozen models of frames plus lenses from hundreds of local shops, plus online retailers. We also collected prices for a year's supply of contact lenses for 6 different brands. So for frames, we found that some online eyewear stores, they're selling stuff that, the same frames, the exact same frames and lenses compared to the big chains that are, it's like 1/5 the cost. For example, one popular model of eyeglasses frames, we found that some local stores were selling it for, 6 times more than the best price we could find online. I think if you want to shop in person, overall, we found that Costco had the best prices among local stores. And also Warby Parker, even though it's offering completely different products than what most other stores are selling, it's only selling its own stuff, but it also has very low prices.
So based on what Checkbook found, it seems like the best place to shop for contacts is online. Just don't assume all online stores sell at the same price. You want the best deal, you got to shop around online as well, correct?
That's true. Yeah, we found that overall the lowest prices we could find were online, but among all the different online sellers, there was still a lot of price variation. So for example, 1-800-CONTACTS, it advertises really heavily out there. It had lower prices than most local stores did for contacts, but it did not have lower prices than Costco, and its prices for a year's supply for most of the different brands of contacts we looked at were hundreds of dollars higher than the lowest priced online stores. We found that, historically, the big winner on price, if you want to shop online for contacts, is an outfit called ContactLensKing.com. Its prices usually are the lowest for most brands of contacts. If you want to shop at a local store, Costco tends to have the lowest prices for contact lenses.
It is a very confusing process, but if you want to get the right product for you and at a good price, you really got to take the time to shop around.
You really do. And I think this is one of those situations where you really need to put yourself in a position where you can trust the advice you're being given. Because as we mentioned at the top, there's just a lot of conflicts in this industry. And often those conflicts aren't obvious. It's not obvious that the salespeople at a store are steering you toward a designer brand that's the same thing as the stuff across the store that, they looks attractive. It looks like, I think, buying a designer frame will mean I'll get better quality merchandise. And that's not necessarily the true at all when it comes to eyeglass frames.
Well, hopefully you've cleared up a lot of things for a lot of people. And if not, put on the record, I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash, and you'll feel a whole lot better about everything.
Right.
Kevin, thank you so much.
Thank you, Herb.
You'll find much more information about eyeglasses and contact lenses on checkbook.org, including tips on how to select eyeglasses and choosing the right type of contact lenses. Plus, for subscribers, Checkbook's ratings of opticians and optometrists in the 7 cities we cover. And with that, we come to the end of another episode. We hope you'll rate it for us and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support this show is to follow us on Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, and at MyConsumerpedia on X, formerly Twitter. I'm Herb Weisbaum. Thank you for listening.
Consumerpedia is a public service of checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that helps you save money and make smarter choices. You can count on Checkbook to help you find the best services and avoid the worst, with local ratings that are accurate and unbiased. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, Check us out: Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/consumerpedia. If you like what you've heard, we hope you'll become a supporter by using the link at the bottom of the show notes to make a small contribution each month. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.